This is Caleb Jones, and this is the Alpha Male 2.0 podcast. I should have one of those, like a few of those women from like the 1930s on those radio stations, like sing some kind of theme song. Alpha Male 2.0 podcast. Get laid and get paid. Something like that. I don't know. Who the fuck knows? I apologize for the audio quality of this particular podcast. I am once again in transit. I'm actually traveling internationally now for the first time in, almost a year. Going to the United Arab Emirates. But anyway, this is one of those podcasts where I don't have an outline. I'm just going to speak extemporaneously about a few things. So the first thing is, maybe this is the only thing I'll talk about in this podcast. We'll see how this goes. It's kind of a winding road. You don't know where you'll end up. I will get guys, when I talk about the collapsing West, United States collapsing, Canada collapsing, Europe collapsing, blah, 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 blah. I will get some guys who say things like, well, Caleb, did you consider this? And they'll pull out some factoid about whatever country they're talking about, usually their country, the country in which they live, their collapsing Western country. And they'll say, what about this? I mean, maybe America is collapsing, but what about this? See, what about this? See, that means maybe it won't collapse. Maybe you'll be wrong. Or, maybe Europe is collapsing, but what about this? They pull out some little demographic thing or some little factoid they read on the internet. And they said, well, what about that? What about that? Maybe you didn't consider that. Maybe it's not collapsing. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. Maybe it'll be fine. I mean, you could be wrong. I mean, you don't know for sure, right? Right? So, asking that question is fine, especially if it's based in facts. That's fine. No problem with that at all. You should be skeptical. You should have all the information. You should make sure that you have all the facts when you make decisions for your life. That's good. The problem is, when I see that question asked, I know that your mindset is in the complete wrong place. The guy asking that question, his brain is in the exact opposite place it actually needs to be. What do I mean? Well, here's the deal. If you say to me, for example, I'll use the United States as the example because that's my home country, but you could say Canada, you could say any country in Europe, basically any Western country, but I'll say the United States. Hey, I think the United States will probably do okay. I think it'll do fine. And the implication of that statement is that you're not going to take any measures to protect yourself if it doesn't do fine. Which means if you're right, you'll be fine. But if you're wrong, you're going to be in big trouble. That is the difference between you and me. The difference between you and me is if I'm right, I'm okay. If I'm wrong, I'm okay. I'm okay either way. Because here's the deal. As I have said many times, yes, I could be wrong. I have said many times on my blogs, my videos, and so forth. No one can tell the future. There's no way to know for sure. All you can do is lay odds on a particular event occurring or not occurring. That's all you can do. So I could be totally wrong. When I say the Western world will collapse in our lifetimes, I could be completely and utterly wrong. Yes, I've said that many times. The problem is, you don't know, and I don't know if I am wrong or not. We can lay odds, but that's the best we can do. So the Western world could collapse in our lifetimes, or it may not. Therefore, it makes sense to account for both eventualities. So, if you said to me, for example, this is just an example, and I'm going to admit that this example is a little extreme and a little straw man-ish, but not by very much, because I've had a lot of guys say things similar to this. If you said to me, Caleb, I think the United States is going to do just fine, or Canada, or Europe, but again, I'm going to use the U.S. Use your own country in place of that if you don't live in the U.S. I think the United States is going to do just fine. I think we're going through some trouble right now, but we've had trouble before, and we pulled through it, and I think the United States is going to come back better than ever. Therefore, Caleb, I am going to stay in the United States forever. I'm going to marry an American woman, have some American kids. I'm going to go get an American job at an American company and live in an American city and rely completely on this American company. Or I'm going to start my own traditional location-dependent business in an American city selling to Americans. I'm going to keep all my savings in American dollars. I'm going to put all my investments in the American stock market, and I'll be just fine. Now, if you do that, as I said, if America turns out to be, quote, just fine, and I'm wrong, and it never collapses, and it does just fine over the next 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years, not going to happen, but okay, let's say it does. Let's say I'm wrong, because I could be wrong. Great, you'll be fine. You'll be great. No problem. If America collapses, you're going to be fucked. And you're going to be fucked in ways that you don't even comprehend right now. Because this generation of Westerners, particularly Americans, has never experienced a major problem. What are you talking about? What a coronavirus? No. That's nothing. You have never experienced a real war, a world war. You've never experienced this. You have never experienced a depression, not a recession, a depression. You have never experienced catastrophically bad problems that affected you directly on a mass scale in your country. Neither have I. Our generation has been lucky that way. We have not experienced these things yet. I think they're coming, but we haven't experienced them yet. So you have no idea how fucked you are going to be if that describes your lifestyle. I've talked about this before. The guy that is completely fucked long term is the typical traditional beta male who plugs his entire life into the Western economic system. He gets traditionally married, legally married. He has kids. He lives in an American city. All of his investments are in a 401k or the American stock market or an IRA. What savings he has, if he has any, is in American dollars. He's got a shitload of debt. He's got a job or a location-dependent business. That guy is so fucked, he doesn't realize how fucked he is. Even if he's not fucked yet, he'll be fucked later when the Western world or when the United States collapses. So that's you, hypothetically, if you're making that argument. If America does fine, you'll do fine. If America does badly, you're going to be fucked. Not that you'll do badly, you're going to be fucked. Oh, you're going to be fucked. Now, let's compare that to me. I have developed a lifestyle, Alpha Male 2.0, plus a little 5 flags, where I am covered and I'm okay either way. If America booms economically in a good way, that would be great for me after I move out of the country in February. That would be awesome. Matter of fact, that would be the best case scenario. The best case scenario is for me to move out of the country, drop my taxes down to single-digit percentage points at my high level of income, and then America does economically fantastic and I sell a bunch of stuff to America. Oh my God, that'd be great. So if America does well, I will do well. If America collapses, I will also do well. I'm covered either way. I've covered both bases because I'm being intelligent. You see the difference? Therefore, if you say, but Caleb, what about this one factor over here? Maybe America won't collapse. That question demonstrates to me that you are looking for a reason to not do anything. You are looking for a reason to just stay where you are and just continue as normal and cross your fingers and hope that your European country or American or Canadian country is going to do just fine. That's where that question is coming from. I know that if you're asking these kinds of questions or you're making these kinds of objections, but Caleb, what about this? But Caleb, what about that? But Caleb, what about this demographic thing in Germany? Maybe Germany will do fine. But Caleb, what about the banking system in Canada? But Caleb, what about the Norwegian sovereign oil fund? But Caleb, what about the fact that Mexicans rely on America? But you pull out these factoids, and I know that as you're pulling out these factoids from the internet, you are not taking the time to better your life and to protect yourself if and when your country collapses. Your mindset is in the complete wrong place. I didn't say you are wrong. I didn't say you're making a bad point. Sometimes these guys make very good points that are valid. Doesn't matter. Their mindset is all wrong. And their mindset is wrong because they're just going to flip a coin. If their country does well, they'll do fine. If their country collapses, they're going to be fucked. I don't want to be fucked. Unless it's by a young blonde woman with big tits. I don't want to be fucked. I want to have a long-term happy life. That's what I teach. Long-term happiness. And the only way to maintain long-term happiness is to account for possible future catastrophes. And if you don't do that, you're being stupid. So the question is not, will my collapsing Western country collapse? Will it or won't it? Will Caleb be right or Caleb be wrong? That is not the question to ask. The question to ask yourself is, it's a two-part question. Will my Western nation where I live now collapse in my lifetime? And is the probability of this collapse more than about 10 to 15%? Because you could argue, and maybe I would agree with you, that if you were convinced the odds of your country collapsing in your lifetime was less than 10%, you could argue, I'm not going to worry about it. You could argue, you could make that argument. That's fine. I've talked about the 2% rule. That'd be a variation of that. So that'd be fine. But if you admit, based on the data that you're seeing, that your Western country could indeed collapse in a very bad way in your lifetime, before you die, and the probability of this collapse is more than about 10 or 15%, whatever that number is, even if you don't have a specific number, and I don't think I have a specific number, but you know it's more than 15%. It is. It's way more than 15%. But whatever number number range you assign to it, maybe 20%, 25%, 40%, whatever that number is, if that's true, if you admit that's a possibility and it's more than 50% probability, then you must take actions in your life to construct a lifestyle where you will be protected in case this happens. And if you don't do that, if you instead make a bunch of excuses about these factual minutiae you find on the internet or you find on Wikipedia about your country and say, well, maybe that will save us, you're going to be fucked, and you are behaving stupidly. And I mean that literally. You are behaving like a moron if you admit that the collapse probability of your country is more than 15% and you don't do anything about it because you're busy making excuses or crossing your fingers hoping everything will be fine. That's fucking dumb. You don't want to do that, you moron. The only scenario under which you wouldn't do that is if you are very, very, very wealthy. You have hundreds of millions of dollars. You were born rich. Maybe you could argue in that scenario you might be fine, and maybe you'd be right. Other than that, I'm certainly not in that category. I doubt you're in that category. You're going to have to take steps. Now, that doesn't mean you have to move out of the country, although that would be ideal. I know that most people in my audience are never going to move out of their countries. I understand that. I've said that many times. I did a video on YouTube a while back called The 6 Things You Need to Do if you want to stay in your collapsing Western country, and I cover 6 items. If you don't move out of your country, that's fine, but you've got to do those 6 things. Let's see if I can remember the 6 things really quick. Let's see. You have to have your own business. Can't have a job. You have to have location-independent income. You have to have investments that are dollar-resistant and government-resistant. You cannot live inside or near a big city. You need to be out in the outer suburbs or the rural area. That's 4 items. Let's see. Can I remember the last 2? I don't remember the last 2. Maybe they'll come to my brain as I talk later. But you can go on my YouTube channel and just pull that up, the 6 things you need to do to stay in your Western country. And I go through all 6 of those things there. I have a feeling, though, if you're making these excuses about, well, maybe my country won't collapse, maybe it'll be fine. I have a feeling you're not doing any of those 6 things. Or, in many cases, you've done one of them. 1 or 2, and I mentioned that on that video. I will get these guys say, well, I'll be fine because I live on a farm. Do you have your own business? No. Do you have location-independent income? No. Do you have money invested in the stock market and 401k? Yeah. I mean, it's all the wrong shit. You need to do all 6 of those things. Or guys who say, oh, I'll be okay because I have my gun and my bullets and I have a lot of Bitcoin. Do you live in a city? Yes. Do you have a job? Yes. So no, it's not that you do 1 or 2 of those 6 things. You do all 6 of those things or move out of the country. And again, if you admit that the odds of your country collapsing in your lifetime is more than 15%, and you don't do those things, you're being dumb. There's no other way for me to say it. Therefore, these excuses are not super relevant. It's not about whether or not Caleb is right or Caleb is wrong. It's not about that. It's about what are the probabilities your country will collapse in your lifetime, and are you taking steps to protect yourself? And hey, I'm an individualist. I'm an individualism absolutist, almost. Not quite, but almost. You can't violate someone else's person or property, but other than that, you can do whatever you want. So if you choose to take no steps whatsoever to protect yourself in the future against Western collapse, that's fine. That's your deal. I don't care. I'm going to be covered either way, so I don't care. I literally don't care. I'm outcome independent, so you can do whatever you want. I don't have a political view about this. I have strong opinions about what I should do. I have near zero opinion about what other human beings should do. I don't care. You do whatever you want. Just be aware of the mindset that your questions are creating. One of the great things and terrible things about my audience is that my audience skews more intelligent. My audience definitely skews toward the higher IQ points. And that's great. I like having an intelligent audience. That's wonderful. The bad thing about that is that when you are smarter, you are more of a nitpicker, and you're more of a researcher, and you're more of a fact finder, and you're not into taking action, and you're into nitpicking arguments and looking at every little piece and aspect instead of getting off your ass and getting into the real world and taking action. It's very easy to look up your country on the internet and read some economic stats and point at something and say, well, maybe that will save my country. That is much easier than actually starting your own Alpha 2.0 business, or moving out of a city, or reorienting your investments, or saving a bunch of money, or paying off your debt. or saying no to your girlfriend when she wants to get traditionally monogamously married. These things take a little more effort and a little more work, don't they? So they're harder to do. It's easier to sit there and point and make excuses. Well, maybe my country will be fine because of X, Y, and Z. And to repeat, maybe your country will be fine. But I would rather you be prepared for both eventualities like I am instead of just one. By the way, to be clear, and I've mentioned this before, once I get all my 5 flag stuff in place and done, that'll be done probably late next year, late 2021, if not sooner. Once I get all this stuff in place and I have fully internationalized my lifestyle and I've spread my risk from one country into about, in my case, about 8 or 9 different countries, that's what 5 flags is all about. Once I have all that done, I'm going to be protected from Western collapse. But that doesn't mean I won't suffer at all from Western collapse. So sometimes people say, well, if you live in such and such country and you have investments in this other country and businesses in another country, and even if none of those countries are the United States and the United States collapses, you're still going to feel it, Caleb, because this will affect other countries. Correct. And I've mentioned this before. There's a difference between being fucked and being inconvenienced. If you remain in your collapsing Western nation and don't take any of my advice, and the nation collapses, you're going to be fucked. I will be inconvenienced. If the Western world collapses, or Europe collapses, or Canada collapses, or America collapses, what have you, yes, I will see some numbers change on a profit and loss statement from one of my companies or one or two of my companies. That's true. And I will look at it and say, God damn it, fuck. And I'll kind of, walk around the house a little pissed off for a few hours, but I'll be fine. There will be no change in my lifestyle whatsoever. There will be no change in my day-to-day life. There will be no change in my sex life. There will be no change in my net worth. Matter of fact, my net worth may actually increase when these things happen because I have a lot of investments that are poised to benefit if and when certain countries collapse, and on and on and on and on. I will be just fine. I'll be inconvenienced. There will be certain things I'll have to do. I'll have to rejigger my staff a little bit. I'll have to rejigger some of my business operations. I have an entire plan for this. I have an entire step-by-step plan for what to do in my companies if the United States / Western world collapses, so I'll know exactly what to do, but my lifestyle will remain the same. Is that true of you, or is that true of that, hypothetical guy who does everything American? All of his investments are in the stock market, in American dollars, living in an American city. Oh my God, that guy is fucked. So there's the difference. It's not about, will I be perfect and will you be perfect? It'll be, you'll be fucked and I will be inconvenienced. I'd rather be inconvenienced. I don't know about you, but that's my druthers. To use an outdated word, I think that's a British word. A core part of Alpha Male 2.0 is to not only survive what is coming, but to benefit from what is coming. And that's the next level beyond this topic in this podcast, is not only to be fine if the West or when the West collapses, but also to benefit if the West or when the West collapses. To benefit from this. I have in many ways this year, 2020, benefited from this COVID-19 crisis, from these recessions and lockdowns and things like that. I have benefited in several different respects. Some of my investments have done very, very well. My gold investments are up literally 49%. I just looked at the numbers the other day. Fantastic. In my business life, my Alpha 2.0 business has gotten a lot of new customers and a lot of new eyeballs because of this type of thing. Since I talk about Western collapses, I talk about location, independent income, and things of that nature. So I'm benefiting right now, whereas a lot of people can't even pay their rent. I'm benefiting. Why? Because I constructed a lifestyle to benefit from these problems. I've been talking about the next recession / depression for many, many years on my blogs, particularly the Caleb Jones blog. And so I was poised to benefit from all this stuff because I learned from 2008, that recession, which hit me in the head hard. After 2008, I recovered from that. I said, okay, never again. I'm not going to set up a lifestyle where I will not only be okay, but benefit from the next recession that is coming. And as I've said many times, we get a recession every 10 years or so. And we were overdue for one when COVID hit. And all that hard work that I did in building this lifestyle structure worked. I am doing just fine. Pink Firefly and I are doing just fine. We've had a very good 2020. Very good. Now, not as good as I wanted it to be because I set some big goals in 2019, the end of 2019 for 2020. So I didn't hit those big giant goals, but we're doing just fine this year. Financially, we're doing just fine. I've seen a lot of complaining about 2020 is my worst year ever. Well, yeah. To me, what does that mean? That means you didn't prepare. You sat around and were lazy and played video games, or you made excuses, say, oh, everything will be fine, and you didn't prepare. I would rather see you prepare. Even though I don't care what you do emotionally, if you're in my audience, I would like to see you be happy. I would like to see you succeed going forward, which means you're going to have to do some things that might be emotionally uncomfortable in terms of like, well, I don't like cryptocurrency. Well, I don't want to buy gold. Well, I like stocks. Okay, I understand. I understand making that transition. I understand it might feel weird for you to, cash out a hunk of your 401k in the stock market and buy a bunch of gold and silver or cryptocurrency. I understand. Believe me, I get it. Doesn't matter. I'd rather see you succeed. I'd rather see you safe. That's just my opinion. That's really it for this time around. I hope this has helped. Maybe in a future podcast, I will jump to the next level of this, in that you don't want to just survive what is coming. You want to benefit from what is coming, because you can. Maybe I'll talk about that next time. I will see you very soon. Have fun. Prepare. Don't be stupid. See you soon. Bye.